The silence in Dr. Victoria Hayes's office was deafening. She had just paused the recording device she always used during our sessions, something she had never done in the 8 months I had been seeing her, and her hands were trembling slightly as she set down her notebook. "We need to talk about what just happened," she said, her voice unsteady in a way I had never heard before. I had apparently dozed off during our session, exhausted from weeks of insomnia, and according to her, I had said her name. Not Dr. Hayes, not Victoria in a professional context, but her name in a way that made it impossible to deny what I had been trying so hard to hide. The way you say someone's name when they mean everything to you. Before we continue with what happened in that office, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please drop your city in the comments below, and if you are enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button to help the channel grow and bring you more stories like this. Now let's get back to the moment that changed everything. My name is Rachel, and I started therapy 8 months ago after a brutal breakup left me unable to function. My ex-girlfriend of 4 years, Madison, had cheated on me with her coworker, and the betrayal had shattered something fundamental inside me. I could not sleep, could barely eat, and my work as a graphic designer was suffering because I could not concentrate for more than a few minutes at a time. My best friend Jenna finally staged an intervention, sitting me down and telling me I needed professional help. She recommended Dr. Victoria Hayes, a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma and had helped her through her own divorce 2 years earlier. I will never forget walking into Victoria's office for the first time. It was on the 3rd floor of a brownstone in downtown Boston, filled with warm lighting, comfortable furniture, and the kind of calming presence that made you feel safe immediately. And then there was Victoria herself. She was probably in her mid-30s, with long auburn hair that she usually wore in a loose bun, striking hazel eyes behind stylish glasses, and this gentle smile that made you want to tell her everything. She was professional and warm and exactly what I needed, or so I thought. Our first few sessions were standard therapy fare. She asked about my childhood, my relationship history, my coping mechanisms. I cried a lot. She listened with this incredible patience and offered insights that actually helped. Slowly, I started to feel like maybe I could survive this heartbreak. But somewhere around month 3, something shifted. I started noticing things I should not have been noticing. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how her voice got slightly softer when she could tell I was about to cry, the small smile she would get when I made a joke, even a bad one. The way my heart would race when I walked into her office each week. I tried to ignore it. She was my therapist. This was transference, probably some psychological thing where patients develop feelings for their therapists because of the intimacy of the therapeutic relationship. I had even read about it online, desperately trying to convince myself that what I was feeling was not real. But it felt real. It felt more real than anything I had felt in years, maybe ever. The way I looked forward to our Tuesday afternoon sessions, how I would plan what to wear, telling myself it did not matter but spending way too long choosing an outfit anyway. The way I hung on her every word, not just for therapeutic insight, but because I loved the sound of her voice. Around month 5, I started having dreams about her. Nothing inappropriate, at least not at first. Just dreams where we were friends, or where we ran into each other outside of therapy and talked for hours. But then the dreams started shifting. They became more intimate, more revealing of what I actually felt. I would wake up feeling guilty and confused, wondering what was wrong with me. She was helping me heal from a devastating breakup, and here I was developing feelings for her that I had no right to have. The insomnia started around month 6. I could not sleep because I could not stop thinking about her. I would lie awake at night, replaying our sessions in my head, analyzing every word, every gesture, looking for signs that maybe she felt something too. Which was insane. She was my therapist. She was professional and boundaried, and there was absolutely no indication that she saw me as anything other than a client. Except sometimes I would catch her looking at me with this expression I could not quite read. Or she would shift in her chair when I talked about certain things, like she was uncomfortable. Or she would pause just a beat too long before responding, like she was carefully choosing her words. I thought I was losing my mind. The lack of sleep was making everything worse. I was exhausted all the time, emotional and raw. Jenna kept asking if therapy was actually helping because I seemed to be getting worse instead of better. I could not tell her the truth. I could not tell anyone that I was falling for my therapist because saying it out loud would make it too real. Last week's session had been particularly difficult. We had been talking about trust and vulnerability, and Victoria had asked me what I was most afraid of in future relationships. I had started crying, really crying, and told her I was afraid I would never find someone who truly saw me, someone who understood me, someone who made me feel safe and challenged and alive all at the same time. She had been quiet for a long moment, and when I looked up at her, she had this pained expression on her face that disappeared so quickly, I thought I had imagined it. "You will find that person," she had said softly. "You deserve to find that person." "What if I already found them and I cannot have them?" I had asked, not quite meeting her eyes, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. The silence that followed was heavy. When I finally looked at her, she was staring at her notebook, her pen frozen on the page. "Rachel," she had said carefully, "are you talking about Madison?" I could have said yes. I should have said yes. Instead, I just shook my head and changed the subject, and she let me. But the tension in the room was undeniable for the rest of the session. That night, I had barely slept at all, my mind replaying that moment over and over. By the time Tuesday rolled around again, I was running on maybe 2 hours of sleep from the entire week. I had shown up to her office exhausted, emotional, and barely holding it together. We had started the session like normal, with her asking how my week had been. I tried to focus, tried to engage, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. The last thing I remember was her voice, gentle and concerned, asking if I was okay. And then everything went dark. I do not know how long I was out. Maybe a few minutes. But apparently, in my sleep-deprived, emotionally vulnerable state, I had said her name. And not just said it. According to what she told me after, I had whispered Victoria in this tone that made it impossible to misinterpret. A tone that revealed everything I had been trying so desperately to hide. Which brought us to now. Me sitting on her couch, wide awake and mortified. Her standing by her desk, having just stopped the recording, looking like she was trying to figure out what to say. "I am so sorry," I said, my voice shaking. "I did not mean to fall asleep. I have not been sleeping well, and I just—" "Rachel, stop," she interrupted gently. "You do not need to apologize for falling asleep. That is not what we need to talk about." My stomach dropped. "Please do not refer me to another therapist. I know I crossed a line. I know this is inappropriate. But I am getting so much out of our work together, and I promise I can keep it professional and—" "Rachel." She said my name more firmly this time, and I stopped talking. She took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes, and I realized she looked almost as exhausted as I felt. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting, okay?" I nodded, my heart hammering in my chest. She took a deep breath and sat down in her chair, but instead of maintaining the professional distance she always kept, she leaned forward, her hands clasped together. "What I am about to tell you is probably the most unprofessional thing I have ever done in my career. I could lose my license for this. I have been fighting with myself for months about whether to say anything, whether to refer you to someone else, whether to just push these feelings down and pretend they do not exist." My brain struggled to process what she was saying. Feelings? What feelings? "I am not supposed to have personal feelings for my clients," she continued, and her voice was shaking now. "It is literally the most fundamental boundary in therapy. But Rachel, from almost the beginning, you have been different. I found myself thinking about you between sessions, looking forward to Tuesdays in a way that had nothing to do with professional satisfaction. I noticed everything about you, what you wore, how you did your hair, the way you laugh when you are trying not to cry, the way you bite your lip when you are thinking about something difficult." I stared at her, unable to form words. This could not be happening. This had to be a dream. "When you asked last week about finding someone who sees you," she said, her eyes meeting mine, "I wanted to tell you that I see you, that I have been seeing you this entire time. Not as a therapist, not as a professional obligation, but as someone who has somehow become the most important part of my week. But I could not say that because I am your therapist, and there are ethical boundaries and power dynamics, and 100 reasons why this should never happen. Victoria, I whispered. And she smiled sadly at hearing her name from me while I was actually awake this time. I should refer you to another therapist, she said. That would be the right thing to do. The ethical thing. But I need you to know why before I do. I need you to know that it is not because you did anything wrong. It is because I am compromised. I cannot be objective about you anymore. I have not been for months. The room felt like it was spinning. You have feelings for me, I said, needing to hear myself say it to believe it was real. Yes, she said simply. I have feelings for you. Strong feelings that have no place in a therapeutic relationship. I am so sorry, Rachel. I never meant for this to happen. I have never had this happen before. But I cannot keep seeing you professionally when I feel this way. It is not fair to you. I sat there, trying to process everything. 8 months of thinking I was alone in this. 8 months of guilt and confusion and thinking I was crazy for feeling what I felt, and she had been feeling it too. What if I do not want to see another therapist? I asked quietly. She looked pained. Rachel, you need support right now. You are still healing from your breakup with Madison. You need professional help, and I cannot provide that anymore. What if I am already healed? I asked. Or at least healed enough. What if I have been healed for months, but I kept coming because of you? You have been making real progress, she said carefully. Because of the therapy or because I wanted to impress you? I countered. Victoria, I have been falling for you since probably our 3rd session. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought it was transference or some psychological defense mechanism. I read every article I could find about patients developing feelings for their therapists, trying to convince myself it was not real. It might not be, she said gently. Transference is real, Rachel. What you feel might change once you are not in therapy anymore. And what you feel? I asked. Is that transference too? She was quiet for a long moment. No. What I feel is not transference. What I feel is unprofessional and inappropriate and very, very real. The admission hung in the air between us. I could see the conflict on her face, the war between what she was supposed to do and what she wanted to do. So what happens now? I asked. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Boston street below. Now I refer you to another therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen is excellent. She specializes in relationship trauma, and I think you would work well together. We terminate our therapeutic relationship properly. And then, after a period of time, after you have had a chance to work through everything with someone else and make sure what you are feeling is not influenced by the therapeutic dynamic, if you still want to, we could consider exploring this, whatever this is. How long is a period of time? I asked. Ethically, at least a year, she said, turning back to face me. Probably longer. Long enough that there is no question about power dynamics or influence. A year, I repeated. The thought of not seeing her for a year felt impossible. I know, she said softly. Believe me, I know. But I have to do this right, Rachel. I could lose everything if I do not. My license, my career, everything I have worked for. And more importantly, I need to know that what you feel is real, and not just a result of the therapeutic relationship. You were vulnerable when you came to me. You were heartbroken and looking for someone to help you heal. I cannot take advantage of that no matter how I feel. I understood what she was saying, but every part of me wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her that what I felt was real, that I had never been more sure of anything. But she was right. We had to do this correctly. Okay, I said finally. I will see Dr. Chen. But Victoria, I need you to know that what I feel is real. It is not transference. It is not because you are my therapist. It is because you are brilliant and kind, and you see me in a way no one else ever has. And that does not go away just because I stop seeing you professionally. She smiled, and I could see tears in her eyes. And I need you to know that what I feel is real too. I have dated people. I have had relationships, but I have never felt anything like what I feel when you walk into this office every Tuesday. That does not go away either. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, and the air between us felt charged with all the things we could not say, could not do. Not yet, maybe not ever, but hopefully someday. I should go, I said, even though leaving was the last thing I wanted to do. Wait, she said, going to her desk and pulling out a business card. She wrote something on the back and handed it to me. It was Dr. Chen's contact information, but on the back, she had written her personal email address. Not for now, she said. But later, after some time has passed, if you want to reach out, you can. No therapy talk, no professional boundaries, just as two people getting to know each other. I took the card, my fingers brushing hers, and felt that same electric jolt I always felt when we accidentally touched. How much later? 6 months, she said. Give it 6 months. Work with Dr. Chen, really work through everything, and if in 6 months you still feel the same way, reach out. And you will respond? I asked. Yes, she said without hesitation. I will respond. I left her office that day with my head spinning and my heart racing. I felt like I should be devastated that I was losing my therapist, but instead, I felt this strange sense of hope. Because for 8 months I had thought I was alone in this feeling, and now I knew I was not. I started seeing Dr. Chen the following week. She was great, truly excellent at what she did, and I threw myself into therapy with a renewed energy. I wanted to heal, really heal, not just from Madison, but from all my old patterns and fears. I wanted to be whole and healthy, not just for Victoria, but for myself. The first few months were hard. I missed Victoria terribly. I missed her office, her voice, the way she would nod when I said something insightful. But I did not reach out. I had promised to give it 6 months, and I intended to keep that promise. Dr. Chen helped me see patterns I had never noticed before. How I had a tendency to make myself smaller in relationships. How I had ignored red flags with Madison because I was afraid of being alone. How I had never really learned to trust my own judgment. We worked through layers of issues I had not even realized I had, and slowly I started to feel different, stronger, more sure of myself. Around month 4, Jenna asked me if I wanted to go on a double date with her and her new girlfriend. She had someone she wanted to set me up with, a friend from her book club. I said no. Jenna asked if I was still hung up on Madison, and I told her the truth. Not about Victoria specifically, but that I had feelings for someone and I needed to see where that went first. Is it someone you are seeing? She asked. Not yet, I said, but hopefully someday. She did not push, which I appreciated. Jenna was good like that. Month 5 came and went. I was doing well, really well. I had started taking on new freelance clients, had reconnected with friends I had been neglecting, had even started going to a yoga class regularly. I felt like myself again, but a better version. A version who knew what she wanted and was not afraid to wait for it. The day I hit 6 months since my last session with Victoria, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. I had thought about what I would say 1,000 times. I had drafted and deleted countless emails in my head. But when I finally sat down at my computer that evening, I kept it simple. Hi, Victoria. It has been 6 months. I have been doing the work. I am in a good place. Everything I felt 6 months ago is still true. If you still feel the same way, I would love to get coffee sometime. No pressure, just coffee. Rachel. I hit send before I could overthink it, and then spent the next 2 hours obsessively checking my email. Finally, right before I was about to go to bed, my phone pinged. Hi, Rachel. I am so glad to hear from you. Yes, everything I felt 6 months ago is still true. More true, if that is possible. I would love to get coffee. Are you free this Saturday? Victoria. I read the email about 20 times, my heart soaring. We were really doing this. After all this time, all the waiting, all the uncertainty, we were actually going to try. That Saturday, I met Victoria at a coffee shop in Cambridge, deliberately far from her office so we would not run into any of her clients. I got there early and was so nervous I thought I might throw up. But then she walked in, and she was not wearing her usual professional attire. She was in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down around her shoulders instead of up in a bun, and she looked so beautiful it took my breath away. "Hi," she said, smiling as she approached my table. "Hi," I said back, standing up awkwardly, not sure if I should hug her or shake her hand or what. She solved the problem by pulling me into a brief hug, and even though it was quick, it felt monumental. The first time we had touched outside of the therapeutic relationship. We got coffee and found a quiet corner table, and for the first few minutes it was a little awkward. We had spent 8 months talking intimately about my life, my feelings, my trauma, but we had never just chatted casually. I did not know her favorite movie or what kind of music she liked or where she grew up. "This is weird, right?" I finally said, laughing nervously. "We know so much about each other, but also nothing at all." She laughed too, and the tension broke. "It is very weird, but good weird, I think." "Definitely good weird," I agreed. We spent the next 3 hours just talking. I learned that she grew up in Vermont, that she had wanted to be a writer before she became a therapist, that she had a younger brother she was incredibly close to. She learned that I had always dreamed of illustrating children's books, that I was terrified of birds for no rational reason, that I could bake, but absolutely could not cook to save my life. When the coffee shop started closing, we moved to a nearby park and kept talking, sitting on a bench as the sun set. At some point, our hands found each other, fingers interlacing naturally, and it felt right in a way that nothing had felt right in a very long time. "I have wanted to hold your hand for over a year," she admitted, looking down at our joined hands. "Me too," I said. "So many times I almost reached for you in your office." "I am glad you did not," she said. "As hard as waiting was, we did this the right way. You had time to heal properly. I had time to work through my own ethical concerns. There is no question now about boundaries or power dynamics." "Are you still worried?" I asked. "About the ethics of this?" She thought for a moment. "I am not your therapist anymore. You have been working successfully with Dr. Chen for months. We waited an appropriate amount of time. Ethically, we are in the clear. Emotionally, though, I am terrified." "Of what?" "That I built this up in my head for so long that reality cannot possibly match it. That I'm going to mess this up somehow. That you are going to realize I am just a normal person, and not whoever you think I am." I turned to face her fully. "Victoria, I know you are a normal person. I have literally seen you at your most professional, sitting there listening to me cry about my ex-girlfriend for months. I know you are human. That is part of why I fell for you. Not because you were perfect or unattainable, but because even in that professional setting, your kindness and intelligence and compassion came through." She smiled and reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers lingering on my cheek. "Can I kiss you?" she asked softly. "Please," I whispered. Our first kiss was soft and sweet, and everything I had imagined it would be. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling like idiots. "Worth the wait?" she asked. "Absolutely worth the wait," I confirmed. We took things slowly after that. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into long walks and museum visits and lazy Sunday mornings. We learned each other outside of the context of therapy, building something real and solid. About 2 months into dating, we were at her apartment making dinner together when she suddenly stopped chopping vegetables and looked at me. "What?" I asked. "I love you," she said simply. "I have loved you for a very long time, but I'm allowed to say it now, so I am saying it. I love you, Rachel." I set down the spoon I was holding and crossed to her, wrapping my arms around her waist. "I love you too. I have loved you since probably month 3 of therapy, which is ridiculous and inappropriate, but it is true." She laughed and kissed me. "It is pretty ridiculous, but I am glad it happened. Even with all the complications and the waiting and the ethical nightmares, I would not change any of it because it led here." "To your kitchen, making pasta?" I teased. "To us," she corrected. "Making a life together." That was 6 months ago. We have been together for 8 months now, and it is the healthiest, happiest relationship I have ever had. We communicate like champions because she taught me how during therapy. We give each other space, but also show up for each other consistently. We laugh constantly. We are building something real. Sometimes I think about that day in her office when I said her name in my sleep and everything changed. How terrified I was. How sure I was that I had ruined everything. But really, that moment was the beginning of everything. It was the moment we both stopped pretending. The moment honesty became possible. Victoria still practices therapy, and she is brilliant at it. But she has a firm policy now about recognizing when feelings might be developing and referring clients immediately. She never wants to go through that kind of ethical crisis again, and I do not blame her. As for me, I am thriving. My graphic design business is doing better than ever. I finally started that children's book illustration side project. I have great friends, a great therapist and doctor, Chen, who I still see occasionally for maintenance, and an incredible girlfriend who sees me completely and loves me anyway. Looking back, I am grateful for every part of the journey. For Madison breaking my heart because it led me to therapy. For Jenna staging an intervention and recommending Victoria. For 8 months of professional boundaries that taught me what I actually needed to heal. For Victoria being ethical enough to stop when she realized what was happening. For both of us being brave enough to wait and do things right. People ask us sometimes how we met, and we have a standard answer about meeting through a mutual friend, which is not entirely untrue since Jenna did recommend her. But the real story is ours alone. The story of how my therapist stopped the session after I said her name in my sleep, admitted everything, and then we both waited and worked and chose each other properly. It is unconventional. It started in probably the most ethically complicated way possible. But it is real and it is ours, and I would not change a single thing about it.